Imagine for a moment that we are all sitting in the same room, sharing stories, exchanging energy, and reflecting on what it truly means to live a long, fulfilling life. Now, longevity is a word we hear often, right? But what does it really mean beyond just counting the years? How do we step into aging not with fear or anxiety, but with curiosity, resilience, and even joy? Welcome back, listeners, to this wonderful episode of the Mindful Living Podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always. And today, I have the privilege of sitting with someone who embodies the very lessons he teaches. Michael J. Dorfman, he's 83 years young, a certified health and nutrition life coach, investigative author, and advocate for longevity. He's been practicing what he preaches for nearly 5 decades, and his mission is simple yet profound to show us that with food, mindset, and intentional habits, vibrant aging isn't just possible, it is available. It is accessible to all of us at any stage of life. So let's open this space with curiosity and together let's explore not just how to add years of to our life, but how to add life to our years. So, Michael, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Well, thank you, Sana. It's a pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to to the show.
Super, super. Michael, 83 years young. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Uh, I mean, now many people, including myself, we see aging as something to fight against. We hear about midlife crisis. Right now, people are thinking, I don't want to work beyond 50. I don't want to work after 40, 45. But you have reframed aging as an opportunity. So, what shifted in you personally that made you see longevity not as a surviving, but as a thriving longer?
Well, yeah, it's been like 5 decades, like you said. I first became a vegetarian. Not because it wasn't because of the health at that time, but I became interested in Eastern philosophy and religion. And on that side of the world, there's many people are vegetarians. So I became a vegetarian, and that lasted for a few decades. The problem I was having, I was getting sick every year, once or twice a year, with not very sick, but with flu-like symptoms. I would get sore throat, I would get fever, I would get congestion. So it wasn't, excuse me, it wasn't until I changed to a plant-based diet, which was my brother was plant-based for years at that time, and he suggested that maybe the problem I was getting sick is because I was still eating dairy. So I decided at one point that I was going to give up dairy, and I did, and that was 17 years ago. So ever since then, I wasn't experiencing those yearly symptoms anymore, and I haven't turned back ever since. And then I found out that the benefits of following whole plant-based foods. Uh, it was incredible, and that's what changed me. And then finally, the years were passing. Got in my 70s, and then the later 70s, and I was feeling great. I was just feeling great, and I started to do I started to see that it was a lot of a mindset that people believe that life is over. You're in your 70s, you get sick, and what else is there? And it's also because a lot of the media or the mindset of the, general populations is that once you're in your 80s, all you can do is hope that you don't get too sick. And but what else could you? You can't really contribute too much to society. You're over the
Mhm.
hill. And gradually, I was seeing that That's not the case at all. How come I'm experiencing a different life? I'm having a different experience. And then I decided I was going to get into longevity and just more and more understanding that life actually can begin at 80. Uh, going back, and I was thinking about there was one point when I was in the 1960s, there was the saying was life begins at 40. And it was like because of the midlife crisis that men were going through. It was like menopause for women, and men were going through, and they were getting depressed because I'm in my 40s, I'm in my midlife. But we don't look at that anymore. It's like at 40, you were thinking that life is a problem now, living longer. So now I think that much of it is this mindset we have about living after, in our 80s and 90s, whereas, there are parts of the world that actually live 10, 15 years more than we do in other populations.
Hmm. That is an interesting journey, Michael. Interesting journey. Um, and I really find that you highlight here the difference between surviving and thriving, because often we you know come to our senses, valuing our health when it feels like it's like slipping away. But your journey, it definitely, your story and these moments of realization, and then your dedication to longevity reminds that it's never too late to pivot toward wellness. At 80 years, I mean, that is, for some it would be unbelievable. So that's really, really inspiring to know.
And I think that it's also that we have this concept that you get in your 60s and 70s that people retire. In their 60s, everybody looks here on this side of the world. It's the American dream. You retire and then you just can sit back and do whatever you want to do. So it ends up that people don't do anything, and they sit back and they either watch TV or they're on their cell phones. But you have to do exactly the opposite. And if you look, I don't know if you're aware, your listeners are aware of the blue zones, populations around the world, where people are living 10, 15 years longer, and they don't have this concept. They're in their 80s and 90s, and some of them living over 100 and doing very well. And it's
Mm.
because they don't slow down, that you're not supposed to slow down. You're actually supposed to you know, keep very active and keep your mind active, your physical body active, so it doesn't slow down, as you get older. And that is, those are that's part of the secret.
Yeah. And any particular practice, since you mentioned about blue zone cultures, and I'll still, just take a bit, uh, maybe to not explain, but, share a bit about blue zone. So it's basically, as you mentioned, people are going to have exceptionally long lives. Um, and are there any specific practice from these blue zone cultures that, you think we often overlook or dismiss in Western lifestyles?
Yes, well, actually, the blue zones were discovered about 15 years ago by
Mhm.
Dan Wetner, who wrote the book on the blue zones. And there were 5 blue zones he discovered, a 2-year search. He was working for National Geographic, and he was sent to find out where the healthiest and longest living people on the planet live. So he went and he found these 5 places. One was Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Icaria in Greece, Loma Linda, California, and Nicoya, Costa Rica. And the whole idea was not only to find out where they live, but also what lifestyles they had in common. That was very, very important. And the lifestyles were, uh, they were all basically plant-based, maybe not 100% plant-based. There was some place they ate some meat or fish, but I would say about 85, 90% plant-based. So that was throughout, and these are populations that are, separated all over the world. So they may have not been in contact with each other, but for centuries, this is what the nutrition they were following. But they also had lifestyles that were very similar. They had one of the things was beside plant, they did exercise. Every day they had
Mhm.
exercise, but it wasn't going to the gym. Their life was active. They were living exercise and they were moving all the time. They didn't have, TV. They didn't turn into couch potatoes, and so they were active well into their 80s, 90s, and so on. And so that was another thing that was important. Third was the community. There was a community base. They had a sharing community where they cared for each other, and that's very important because human beings are, social animals. So we do very well in groups that care for each other. So that was another thing. And then they also meditation and a way to touch with your heart, to feel. And so that was another part of it. And that was also a way to reduce the stress in their lives, which we know, in daily life, there's a lot of stress now. So meditation or Tai Chi, yoga, and or doing physical activity, even walking and just keeping active and not, just settling down and in a form of life that was slowing you down. So this was very important as well. And I think another thing that was it's very important, which has been very important for me, was finding purpose in your life. In other words,
Mhm.
a meaning. When you wake up in the morning, uh, what do you live? Why are you living? Why do you care about living? It's because you have purpose, whether it's helping people or finding, maybe painting, something that keeps you going, that gives meaning to your life. And that's what I found for myself in writing and speaking. And that's what keeps me going as well. And I also, added on certain things that, it was in the blue zones, they have a certain lifestyle. But here I have, in other cultures, we have different lifestyles. So I found out competition sports for me, breath work, uh, things that I'm going through, let's say, intermittent fasting. So I'm adding that on to this other lifestyle, which keeps me going, and I'm thriving because of that.
That is very interesting. I think you just, gave the secret sauce in there. And one thing, that I really kind of, it took me to a nostalgic trip, that these habits, the habit of living, exercise, movement, community, I think these now seem to have relevance in the older days, like, 80s, 90s. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, so I can like maybe imagine the 70s and 80s, but of course before that as well. But right now, although technology has its own benefits, but I also believe there's definitely other side of the coin where it has kind of, um, kind of, given us the sense of gratification that everything is convenient. You do not need to do any kind of physical work. You do not need to even move your feet and go and, switch on or switch off your lights. So, yeah, that's very interesting. And these are, I think, very, very simple practices, not any secret ingredient in there.
Yeah, and what you're saying is so true today with the young people that everything's become so easy. And it's not healthy. We need to face challenges. We need to, for example, you get into your later years in your 80s, and you always have the challenge of, keeping your mind healthy. So what do?
Mm.
You look for things that you change your habit. It's important to get new habits and challenge your mind. and, learn something new, write, anything that keeps you going, because if you don't, it is an old saying, if you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. And this what happens, people start getting, problems with Alzheimer's and senility, as they get older. But we have to go against that, and the same thing happens as well physically. And, is one thing I'm just thinking of, the young people of today and even the older people today, like, we go on the cell phones and we talk to people on the cell phone, or we're on different media on Instagram or Facebook, and we don't have actual we're not in person with another person. We really believe that on the phone, it's the same thing as being in the same room with a person where you're actually sharing energies and you're feeling each other. So this is what's happening in the world today, and it's scary. It's really scary because we're losing this compassion for other people we see that in the world today, and so we're going in the wrong direction, and we have to come back. And that's what I feel, and that's what I'm all about, is just bringing back, actually, what keeps us alive and what makes us human.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, um, and uh, Michael, of course, you mentioned about some of the practices that you follow, plant-based diet, intermittent fasting, especially on mindset. Um, but because you are living longevity, any specific daily practices that have become non-negotiable for you at this stage of life?
Yeah, well, non-negotiable for me is the plant-based nutrition, whole plant-based nutrition, because I think that it's maybe worth 70% of this change and this possibility of living into your later years is maybe not 100%. But I want to give an example of I have a friend. Well, we had a friend, Beatrice, and this was one of the reasons that I decided to try want to help people. And Beatrice was a close friend of ours, and she had a heart attack. This was many years ago, and she went through quadruple bypass heart surgery, and they sent her home. And then a year later, she was brought back into the hospital because they had to replace the aorta artery with a vein, and they wanted to put a stent in because it was closing. And they couldn't put the stent in because the vein was too narrow, and they sent her home. And they didn't tell her that she had. They told my wife and also her son that she had about 6 months to live. And I heard
Mm.
about this, and I was already on a plant-based journey, and I gave her this book, which was How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And she read it, and she went on plant-based. So instead of living 6 months, she lived almost 9 years. So for me, it was like, this is, plant-based foods is what really can reverse a lot of people who are going through and they have a chronic disease now, whether it's type 2 diabetes, whether it's heart disease, and other disease, there's still time. It's never too late to even reverse diseases. So for me, plant-based foods is non-negotiable because it's where we get our fiber from. It's where we get our energy from the carbohydrates, the phytonutrients. There's so many things that plant-based offers. There's not, you don't have the saturated fats that come from animal products. You don't have the hormones you're getting from the animals. So it's non-negotiable. But beside that, we have exercise. It's important to keep on moving, and things I do is I challenge myself because I find that's what keeps the body alive. If you're losing muscle mass, what do? You go to the gym. And the gym, you go through some, exercise, you go through some pain, challenges, and your muscles grow. So this is what happens with our cells, that we have to challenge ourselves so we can grow, and we can stay healthy, that the body can actually continue its self-healing powers. So I find that, and I also, I find that meditation, avoiding stress, stress is a killer. You can do everything great, but if you have too much stress and you're living stress in your life every single day, then you're dealing with the stress hormones that cause inflammation and cause disease. So you have to find a way to reduce it, either by, going through anti-stress techniques or meditation, exercise, being calm, feeling calm, and just not get involved in this, what's happening in the world, and try to get in touch with yourself through meditation, or whatever way you use, so that you know that you are not everything that's going on all around you. You are you, and everything else is happening, outside. So that separation, if that happens, is a wonder, because it just says, okay, I'm not all that stuff, so I don't have to get all stressed out. But that's something that needs a change in mindset. You were talking about mindset at the beginning. It was like, a mindset of like things. I'm living the mindset, and I don't feel like I'm trying to be healthy. I feel that I'm there already, and that's the way I'm living my life.
Wow, that is beautifully put, Michael. Beautifully put. And it's a miracle. I mean, 6 months to 9 years. I think
Yeah.
that is I think that's more than just proof. And you mentioned, of course, stress is definitely killer. But then there is a catch to it. So when you talk about the role of stress, not all stress, but eustress, EU stress, the positive kind, how can someone who is feeling overwhelmed right now, how can they begin to turn stress into a fuel rather than burnout?
Well, it's not easy for a lot of people, because they get used to stress, daily in their lives. And eustress is actually brief moments of stress in your life. And brief moments of stress in your life can actually prepare your body for getting used to, dealing with longer problems of stress. So what I do is I do intermittent fasting. Not, uh, what I do is I stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, and I start eating the next when I do it. I don't do it every day, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. So I quit at 8 o'clock at night, and I go until 10 o'clock the next morning, and I don't eat. And then I start eating. So if I want to do the same thing the next day, I stop eating at 8, and then I start again. So the body is going through a stressful moment, because it's being challenged. You're experiencing hunger, and the body is experiencing hunger. And gradually, sometimes we eat so much that it's very difficult for people to lose weight, because we eat a lot. But then when you put your body through this brief moments of stress, and you do the intermittent fasting, you find out that you start eventually you eat when you're actually hungry. And it's one of the ways. So the body goes through that, moment of stress. And then, the other thing I do is through breath work, focusing on your breath. And I do breath holds, which allows me to get more oxygen into the body. Uh, and and also with eating plant-based foods, you're putting your body through some stress, because of the phytochemicals. Uh,
Mm.
so the phytochemicals are actually the immune system of the plants. They have the phytochemicals to fight off plagues and insects and things like that. So we get phytochemicals through the plants. So our body is being challenged with those chemicals that are in the plants. It's not
Mm.
really that much time to explain right there, there. and also challenging because when you get older, your body wants to slow down. So when you keep exercising, you keep moving, you're actually challenging your body to keep. And those are moments of stress. You don't experience the long-term stress, because when you experience long-term stress, then the stress hormones start being released in your body, and that's what causes inflammation and eventually chronic diseases. You don't want that. So meditation is very important. Just understanding, and why are you getting stressed out? In a certain moment, where is the stress coming from? So this is a mindset to avoid the stress, which is something that we need to work on. Uh, it's really interesting because one of the things that's important, it became very important to me, is that uh, to me it's uh, feeling good becomes important, critical in our lives. Then everything can change, because what happens when feeling good becomes important, and this is what I do as much as I can during a day, is I stop every once in a while and I say, well, how am I feeling? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling depressed or something like that? And then I just try, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit stressed now. So then this is how am I going to deal with that? So I try to feel good, because when you get older, no matter what you do, like I'm 83, I know I'm not going to live forever. I don't know how many years I'm going to live, but I want to be healthy and I want to thrive as long as I can live, whether it's to 90, 95, or whatever. And hopefully I get there. So I play competitive sports. So, to me, it's very important to just remember, and just try to, you know, take a moment to see what's going on with me. How am I feeling? How am I doing? And if I'm feeling stressed, maybe I ought to go out and get exercise. Maybe I ought to do this. Maybe I should, meditate for 5, 10 minutes. So
Mm.
I'm just trying to keep in tune, because this is what's important to me, is to really enjoy my life.
Absolutely. No doubt. No doubt, Michael. Ah, that's super super duper inspiring. And of course, before we wrap up, Michael, if listeners they want to connect with you, what should be the easiest way?
Well, I have my website, which is the longevitywellnessrevolution.com. I think it's in your if you'd be able to share that with your audience. And I'm also on Substack. It's my principal, where I share my weekly articles on health. The one you mentioned, eustress, was one that I had a few days ago. I put on my article, in my article. So if people would like to subscribe, they can just send them, go onto my website, and I could send the articles. And I'm going to be doing. My book is coming out. My new book, which is the Longevity Wellness Revolution, before the end of the year. Well, I'm going to be sharing a lot of my secrets and ideas and what I'm going through, and I'm also planning on coaching sessions. So yeah, hopefully some of your listeners would be interested in doing that.
Super, super. Michael, I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes. And I thank you. I couldn't thank you enough, because your story, it's a living proof that vibrant health and purpose, they're not age restrictive, or they're not bound by age, but by mindset and daily intention. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sana, for the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Superb. And thank you to all the listeners out there. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Living. And thank you for being with us here. Until next time, may you walk gently, live fully, and age with grace. Thank you.